Hello, everyone. Happy Friday evening, everybody. Hope you guys are staying warm. I know it's a little cold and snowy outside here in Chicago, but we're here with for our War Mia playoff special. Yes, there's no Super Bowl. That's not till next Sunday, but we still got a lot to talk about tonight. I'm Lakeena McGee. You follow me, Lakeena McGee on the Twitter and Lakeena_McGee on the IG. Got my buddies here. War Media, you guys know from War Media, the NFL beat reporter for War Media, Mr. Joe Tanksley. Joe, where people can find you on the social media streets?
At badman_Tanksley. You can find me on Twitter and IG at that handle. And you can also find me on War Media covering the Bears and talking about football.
We got a lot to talk about tonight. And we got another Joe joining us today. Very accomplished young man here. He's Joe Lewis. He's a Bears beat reporter for the Barber's Chair Network. Also, he's the co-host of the 79th and Halas podcast. And I don't want to, I know you got a lot going on here, Joe. But where can people find you and find all your stuff and everything?
You got it right. That was perfect. You can find me on Twitter at Flows Andolini. Same on IG.
All right, nice. So Flows, since we got two Joes here tonight, so we're gonna show everybody Joe Tanksley Tank and Joe Lewis Flows that you saw on his social media at the bottom. But so you were Flows. I'm gonna talk to. I gotta make sure I direct this right. But you were at the presser, the initial presser for the Bears new GM Ryan Poles and also to their new head coach Matt Eberflus. What was the atmosphere like? I think I heard you answer a question, but what were your impressions of the two gentlemen that's going to be leading the Bears?
Well, I guess the atmosphere in the beginning was sort of here we go again. One of my colleagues has said, "See you again in 4 years." Right, right as we got in, so we were kind of assuming the same old, same old. Walking back, thinking about it after it happened, I will say I was sort of positively surprised, and I say positively because I've been surprised by Bears press conferences before, and in terrible ways. George McCaskey's exit presser was terrible, and it surprised me as how bad it was. This one, however, this press conference seemed a bit more thorough and modern. Ryan Poles is. These are not names that I had heard of before, and most beat reporters had not heard of him like that. You, of course, can look on Chiefs on the Chiefs website and see who was doing college scouting, but no one really knew who he was in terms of at least my circle of beat journalists. But in the league, a lot of people knew who Ryan Poles was, and they said he is this up and coming young executive, and he's going to do well. That was all fine and dandy, but then I heard him speak. I heard him talk about the things that he wanted to do with the Bears, and I was impressed. And so my really mood from it was a bit of hope and optimism. And with Eberflus, he just seemed like a coach's coach. He reminded me of an old high school coach. That is, the first thing he said was, I'm telling the players to get your track shoes on because we're going to run. I'm like, this is classic coach talk. So from him, it just seemed like he had a more detailed process. One of the hardest things with Matt Nagy when he was coaching was getting an answer out of him on what they're going to do. What's the plan? Mm-hmm. And for him to have a plan was great. Mm-hmm. But that also may be just the fact that I have low expectations from dealing with the Bears my entire life. So, but overall, it was pretty good just to hear from them. And they seemed to take serious the job that they had. It wasn't just I'm a coach now. They were realizing, okay, we're coaching the Bears. And even though the Bears haven't had much success, the Bears are still treated like a religion in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
So they did a really good job in their press conferences.
Take, what was your impression of the presser?
Let's see. Well, I did attend a presser in person, so I was just able to watch it online. But I would say that like Flows, I wasn't expecting very much. I do think a lot of people were taken aback by the coach speak from Matt Eberflus. With the HITS philosophy, it's the acronym. A lot of times when people hear those acronyms, they think, oh man, this guy's silly. And the track shoes, all the cliche coach speak. is what a lot of people got out of that from Matt Eberflus. But I was definitely impressed with the plan going forward for the team, and what his outlook is, and him saying right off the bat that I'm not going to be calling the defense. That's the job of the defensive coordinator. And then you see how he backed that up by hiring capable people to do those things. And then Ryan Poles, his plan to rebuild the Bears, and starting off in the trenches, with the offensive line, and then adding Ian Cunningham as the
Mm-hmm.
assistant GM from Philadelphia. They're talking the talk, and they're backing it up with action, with their hires, and with the plan that they're trying to put forth. And you can see how it's starting to come together, with the offensive coordinator and the quarterback coach, and Matt Eberflus was able to bring a lot of those people who he worked with in Indianapolis over with him, and that's important because when you're going to start installing new defenses, and you all need to be speaking on the same language and be on the same page, and understand what the philosophy is and the things that you're going to teach and the way you want to teach it. All that has to be said. There can't be any disjointedness. It has to flow and be able to go together. And the same on offense. Luke Getsy, Andrew Janoko, two guys who work together at Pittsburgh on the staff with Dave Weinstedt. And both guys of that kind of Kyle Shanahan zone blocking running scheme. They also added a offensive line coach that's real versed in that running scheme as well. I think his name is Chris Morgan. I slipped my mind, but you see how they're able to, they're starting to build this together with very, very capable people and talented coaches. And you're also hearing rumors that they might be able to hire the former interim head coach from the Raiders, and Rich Biasha, who led the Raiders to the playoffs. Who's a special teams coordinator. So bringing in those names that you're hearing, bringing in capable people is very important, and then letting them do their job is important. And that's something that quite frankly, Matt Nagy struggled with. Letting people do their job, and just focusing on one side of the ball too was also a downfall for him. And so right off the bat, you can see that this team is going to have a comprehensive and complementary plan on how to win football games. And so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, Alan Williams, who's a new defense coordinator, worked with Eberflus in Indianapolis. I think they got like about 3 or 4 coaches, from Indianapolis. Now they're going to be
Yeah,
here
they're
in
pillaging the
Chicago.
Colts right now.
Yeah, it's basically the Chicago Colts, I guess, if you want to call them that. Flo, Joe and I have been talking about this the last few weeks. Do you think this Bears team is as it's constructed right now, is a contender, or do you think they may have to move some stuff around?
Oh, they're absolutely not a contender. Eberflus talked about this upcoming season being a foundation, and I wanted to respond to him and say it's a foundation. That's it. Right now, as it's constructed, you don't really. I mean, Darnell Mooney's a good, skill player. I think he's one of the hardest workers I've ever seen, and he could be a great number 2, but he shouldn't be the number 1. Allen Robinson, you don't know what's going on with his contract situation, or even if Ryan Poles and Eberflus want him on their team. And the only really messed up part is that can be, I guess, sort of a devil's advocate to my own belief of them not being a contender is Matt Nagy ran that team so terribly that there is a part of me that does not know if they're a contender or not. But the but the negative Bears fan in me says absolutely not. The defense, I think, in a 4-3 is going to be even better than they were. That's great. And I'm confident. I mean, every Bears GM that is coming here, except Phil Emery, has put together a good defense. So I'm not shocked that they have that. But offensively, it's hard to tell. I love Justin Fields. I'm a Buckeye, so of course I'm going to love him. But that doesn't necessarily mean he'll be a good QB. So it's right now, I would say no. But, it's football. Look at what happened with the Bengals. They retooled quickly, and they're in the Super Bowl. So even though they may not be it right now, it doesn't take much for them to become a contender.
What about with Khalil Mack's contract? I mean, there are some rumors that maybe that they may have to move him to maybe free up some money. Other guys that may have to be moved to kind of free up. I guess people were saying that everybody but Roquan Smith is kind of up for grabs in that defense. What say you?
I would agree that everybody but Roquan should be someone you could consider moving. I don't know who's going to take Khalil's contract. That is a massive contract, and I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. But I don't see who would want to, take that contract on. But there are some pieces, like even with Robert Quinn's outstanding season he had last year, breaking that Richard Dent sack record. That wouldn't be someone I would leave off the market. You don't know what you could get back for him. But Roquan, and I would say Jalen Johnson as well, should be those two that you focus on the most. But Khalil, I'm going to assume he stays. That's a big contract.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to the NFL as a whole, we'll get to the lawsuit first so that we can kind of get our thoughts on that. Tank, I'll start with you. Of course, Brian Flores has sued the NFL, has also sued the Giants, the Dolphins, and the Broncos. There have been allegations from all this. Actually, all this stemmed from a text message that Bill Belichick sent to Flores, which was actually mentioned for a new Giants head coach Brian Dable, and Brian, I guess I don't know how Belichick says that, but he's 70, I guess. But Tank, I'll start with you. The lack of we saw the list of coaches. We got I'll go through a list in a second, but guys that have actually already gotten jobs. None of them are black, and unfortunately, we all know that this is a big. This is sort of a big, sort of target in the NFL. Of course, Tony Dungy, who had to wait like 20 years for his the first head coaching gig almost, and other guys, and so it's just unfortunately there's no there's not really like a big surprise here that this happens. Unfortunately, even still, the Rudy Rule is a sham. We all agree on that. So, well, what do you think about the lawsuit, and what can be done to sort of rectify it, or at least try to? Because I talked about it on our Second City Sports show today that Sydney Brown and I I actually, we don't have a solution here. So Tank, I'll start with you. Do you have one?
No, there is no solution. The solution to this problem, right now, currently, when you look at the people who own these teams, it's not a very diverse group, and so when you have that, the people who are making these decisions not being very diverse, you end up with only one black head coach in the league. Um, you know, it you can, I mean, it plays out every year. They do the same lip service. I remember Roger Goodell coming out, speaking out on how hard they need to work harder on hiring more black coaches, and then you see what's happening this coaching cycle. You have guys, very capable guys, very talented guys that have been working and paying their dues for years. Eric Bieniemy, Todd Bowles, Byron Leftwich, sorry. But these are people who've earned a right to get a shot. And you look at people who are getting a shot and who are not as qualified as well. Who just got hired as the coach for the Vikings? Who is that guy? What has he done? He's no Todd Bowles. He's not a Byron Leftwich. You know what I'm saying? Byron Leftwich won a Super Bowl as a coordinator. Did that dude who the Vikings hired do that? No. So, so I'm just, it's just very interesting to see how this plays out. Now with the lawsuit from Brian Flores, this is pretty much, a sacrifice that he's making, for as far as coaching in the league. I'm pretty sure if he, would have waited it out another year or two, took a defensive coordinator job somewhere, just, grin and took it, he would have got another opportunity. But he's making a stand, and so, I mean, I commend him for that. So,
Yeah, also too with the tough with the Broncos with Elway and the rest of the brass were supposed to be allegedly hungover and such, not taking the injury seriously with Flores, he alleges, and just a bunch of other things. Flows, what do you think?
No, Tank, he was spot on. I mean, that you're spot on with that. The Rooney Rule, and also you be correct with the Rooney Rule. It's a sham, and it's really just this is appearance. Okay, we got some black guys in here. We got some black folks in here. We did our part, and then now we can move on to hiring white men because that's who we're going to put our concern and our effort into. And then when I found out that Brian Flores said they were hungover, I mean, how more disrespectful can you be? That's just basically saying we're going to do the song and dance and make it seem like we're bringing in some black folks, and then we're going to actually do what we wanted to do. And then, of course, the Bill Belichick text messages were just really the icing on the terrible cake. To say that,
Right.
oh man, congrats on the job. I don't know how you mix them up, because if they're in your contact list, you should know. That's another story. But what you said about, Tank, what you said about Byron Leftwich and Todd Bowles is spot on. I mean, he went from Tom Brady had arguably his best career years under Byron Leftwich. I mean, he was throwing for 5,040 touchdowns. He was 44-year-old man.
43 and 44 years old.
Yes. Yep.
And if you compare his seasons previously on the Patriots, they were not that. They were not. He was not doing what he was doing under Byron Leftwich. So Super Bowl winner, and then of course you have what Todd Bowles did to the Chiefs, arguably one of the greatest offenses of all time, and shut them completely down. And the fact that they weren't first up immediately to get a job just shows you, what this league is truly all about. And it is a sham. It puts up a nice screen. We're going to put in racism in the end zone. We're going to make sure you see the performativeness of how much we care about actual issues affecting minorities, specifically black folks. But then in reality, we're going to do the same old good old boys thing and not hiring it. And the only thing that I really think is going to change it is black owners. Minority ownership is going to be the biggest thing, because when you're actually, not only you at the table, you're setting the length of the table, you're setting the plates on the table, you're doing everything. And so until that happens, it's going to be that, because the people who actually get selected as coaches, Tomlin, of course, he's an accomplished coach. Before that, the most tenured black coach I could think of was Marvin Lewis with the Bengals.
Yep,
now I don't know how he got away with being the Bengals coach for so long, but he was
we've been finding out that some of these owners is paying for losses.
That is true.
Oh yeah.
$100K for losses.
That's what the accusation
for losses
is.
for tanking. Allegedly. You know what I'm saying? Let's keep that allegedly, because both Flores, said, allegedly said that happened with the Dolphins. Hugh Jackson, who was with the Browns at the time, said that happened too.
Yeah.
So
he was on Twitter talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, allegedly, tanking, and apparently, I guess Tom Brady, they were trying to tank for the Dolphins were to get like Tom Brady to come to Miami. So it's just a whole lot of allegations and such. And look, none of this would surprise me. I don't know about the $100,000 stuff, but hey, I'm sure that happens as well. But, I'm sure he has some proof. Will it be enough? I don't know. But I feel like this is going to sort of settle out of court. I don't think the NFL wants to open a Pandora's box, if you will. So, Tank, I was going to start with you. What do you think? Does this get settled out of court, or does it go so long that they trial?
That's the thing. Brian Flores says that he does not want money. It's not about the money for him. So, for the right amount of dollar, you can get anybody to do anything. And it depends on how damning or what evidence they have as to what that dollar amount is going to be. And so, everybody has a price, but as of right now, Flores says that he doesn't want money. It's about the principle. So we'll see how it plays out. I'll just leave it at that.
Close.
Yeah, I think the NFL will probably do everything in its power to settle it out of court, especially after coming off the heels of what they did to Cap, what they did to Colin Kaepernick. So they'll try, but the question is how big is Brian Flores' resolve? If he really, really wants to see this thing through and to have everything they did publicly exposed, then he'll have to keep pushing, not look for the money. But as you said, Tank, for the right amount of money, most people will look past that and just settle it. But for Brian Flores to add, to even adding to that is the fact that he might not be a coach after this, at least not at the professional level. He's kind of putting his career on the line with that. So I do not think it will be settled just because of the principle of what Brian Flores is saying. I think it's more so about correcting and really invading and breaking down the good old boys club. So I'm going to assume it's just going to play out. And honestly, the uglier it is, the better it is for the league in itself if they truly want to progress.
Well, no, you just answered my second follow-up here before we move on. Flows, is there going to be pressure on New Orleans and Houston? Because apparently you already talked to both of them, but he said he really wants to coach or any other black coach. Do you guys think that this will pressure either one of those teams, or perhaps either hire him or any other black head coach to sort of kind of like quiet the noise, if you will?
I would love to say it's pressure on them to hire him or any other black coach, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't think so. I think they're probably going to still do what they do. You have to really, really, really have something damning, or really just put the greatest possible amount of pressure on them for them to make change, specifically ownership within sports leagues, not just the NFL, but the NBA and
Mm-hmm.
other MLB is 10
Exactly.
times worse. So
Oh yeah.
I
Let's not.
don't think so at all. I mean, the only thing that will really help is just more damning evidence of it, and maybe that sways public opinion. And if it sways public opinion enough and it hurts their pockets, then maybe. But I'm not hopeful.
Tank.
You know, I know that he has connections with the GM, in Houston. And so
Yeah.
if anybody's going to hire him, it's going to be Houston. New Orleans, I'm not sure. But, I think Flows is correct. I mean, you know, they tried to put pressure on, teams to give Kaepernick a roster spot. No one ever budged. So, I mean, so it's just business as usual. And especially when you got a monopoly on the biggest sport in this country,
Yep.
you got the money to make problems go away. All right.
Hmm.
And so uh, it's just, I mean, as far as, that until we get like real ownership change, diversity in ownership, with, more minorities, being a part of ownership groups, these things are not going these things won't change. And so, I mean, you know, I guess it would be beneficial for one of those teams to hire Flores just to say, see, see, he got a shot. Now what? Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just wait and see for me.
Absolutely. You're watching and listening to us here on Warren Media NFL playoff special. Of course, waiting on the big game next week between the Bengals and the Rams in SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. I'm Lakeena McGee along with Joe Tanksley and Joe Lewis. Now we're gonna move on here to a little bit happier side, but something that we kind of expected. Tom Brady, of course, 7-time Super Bowl champion. Well, you know what? Well, you know what though? It was, to finish up this discussion, 15 years ago today, the irony here is that it was the first Super Bowl matchup between two black head coaches between the Bears and the Colts. Of course, Lovie Smith and Tony Dungy. Dungy ended up, of course,
You can
Bears
also
fans.
argue that Lovie Smith shouldn't have been fired as well.
Yeah, there are a
And
lot
that's
of people who feel that way. Yeah.
and that's been the argument. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No, 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 no. Go ahead. No, because I'm just
but
gonna
that's a
say
part of the
that. Yeah,
argument that
irony.
they're
Yeah.
making too. Is that the white coaches get a lot longer leash than the black coaches. You look at what happened to David Culley in Houston.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with that crappy team and with that crappy situation to be in. That was a crap show that's going down in Houston. And so to get the axe after 1 year, it's pretty much, it was, you could call that a sham hiring, because everyone knew that they wasn't going to be any good this year. So, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, continue on, Keena.
No, you're fine. But yeah, because I was just gonna say that we, of course, Tilly does would end up retiring on his terms, thankfully. But of course, Lovey got a shot at Illinois, hasn't had a shot since. And yes, like you said, Tank, that he probably should not have been fired in that last season, even though yes, they did, when tapered off a little bit after that hot start. But Flows, what do you think?
When it comes to, I may be one of the only few people who did not mind Lovey being fired. Now the circumstances were suspect as best. If I remember
Right.
correctly, they were 10-6.
Yep,
Didn't make the
10-6.
playoffs, but they were 10-6. And obviously, no coach has had success like Lovey since. My only issue with Lovey was the issue I had with him after 2007, I would say, when the league, it actually may have been the Super Bowl year, 2005, 2006, when they started to modernize and passing became much more important. It wasn't what it is now, where teams like the Bills barely run. But I thought to myself, they are really, really sticking in the past. And then, of course, sticking to a base cover 2 was never my thing. And I didn't mind him leaving, but just not on that terms. Leaving after being 10-6 is not really fair.
No.
Yeah, and I do think that, to be fair, what I'm saying, I don't think it was Lovey to be let go after 10-6, but I do think that the team needed to change. They needed to go in a different direction. But I think he had earned another shot, another year at least.
Yeah, that's how I kind of feel about that. He could at least got another year, but it is what it is, unfortunately. Now, on some somewhat happier note, as we were saying, Tom Brady, after a stellar career, 22 years, 7 Super Bowls, wrote a really long post on Instagram. We can go on his Instagram account because I'm not going to read it. I'm not even going to have a Cliff Notes version of it because he thanked pretty much everybody. He thanked, his coaches. He thanked, he actually thanked Leftwich because for what you said earlier, Flows, about, some of his best numbers were, when he was his OC. And of course, he did have this, people were up in arms because he didn't say anything about the Patriots and, and the fans. So he actually did say something afterwards, on his other social media accounts. But of course, it's gonna be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and all this and that, all passing records and all that stuff. What do you think, Flows? I'll start with you. What do you think is going to be the legacy for Mr. Brady?
Oh, greatest of all time. I'm biased. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm biased. So, the answer you're gonna get from me is one who is their favorite player is Tom Brady. One of my favorite players. He's my favorite quarterback of all time. Of course, some people will look at Deflategate and Spygate, a few of those scandals, but I think he's just revolutionary simply because of the time he spent in the game. I mean, his first Super Bowl, I was 10 years old, almost 11. That is a long time, and I'm a 31-year-old man. So the fact that he's been playing at this high of a level is just incredible, doing it under multiple coaches, multiple coordinators. So I think his legacy speaks for itself. He's not arguable. He is the greatest quarterback of all time. And if you're like a few of my family members who do not like, at least with football, determining who is the best player outside of specific positions, like they'll say, there's no best player. There's the best quarterback, best running back. He is clearly the best quarterback of all time.
Tank?
Yeah, it's hard to argue with those numbers. 7 Super Bowls. How many has he been to? I mean,
he lost 3, so 10.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he's been to 10 Super Bowls. We got a person up the north, in Wisconsin, who's supposed to be MVP caliber, who's only managed to win 1, and he's only managed to win the division once. And so you look at all the other, talented QBs in the past. You look at the guys like Dan Marino and guys like that who were able to put up more, put up numbers. You know what I'm saying? The Dan Fauci's, guys like that. And then you see this guy who's able to get to the Super Bowl. And get into the Super Bowl is hard. To be able to do it 10 times. Be able to do it 10 times and then win 7 of them. That's amazing. That's not something that's going to be repeated. You got people who have a shot now, but it's going to be really, really hard to do, especially with the way, football is played now, with the parity that, we're starting to see in the league and all the first jumps that teams are making. It's going to get harder and harder, to replicate that. And so, yeah, the greatest quarterback of all time, it's Tom Brady, and I didn't really appreciate him, his, as a quarterback, while he was with the Patriots, but to see him go to another team, and I think that really solidified his legacy as being one of the greatest, because, it was a system thing. He was tied to Belichick and what they were doing up in New England, and seeing him be able to go out and do it with another team, really solidified him being the greatest, in my opinion. And to be doing it, at 44 years old, I was looking. They had like a time relapse thing going on Twitter when he started off him as his rookie year, and then going into now, and to see the changes that he's made. He's dedicated himself to football. He went to the baby face, baby fat having, kind of pudgy look, and then getting down to being real chiseled and being real regimented, with all that, TB12 stuff. But yeah, he's dedicated his life to football. There's really nothing left for him to prove, really. He's done it all. He's done it all. Probably, not probably, but this is the greatest career of any player.
Yeah. I think
so.
Definitely.
So when you think about, the MVPs, the appearances in the Super Bowl, 10 of them, 7-1. I mean, for me to say the greatest quarterback of all time, he is the greatest player of all time. That's not something that's going to be replicated.
Yeah, I don't think so. You're not going to get a one player to go to 7 Super Bowls and win 7 Super Bowls, perhaps even going to 10. I mean, look, Mahomes is probably going to be the closest. He's having trouble. He's been to 2, won 1, lost 1. Of course, 2 Brady's, Bucks, and Been to 4 AFC Championship games. I think he probably might be the closest to probably maybe get close to Brady, but I don't think it's going to happen with everything. With like you guys said, parity and salary cap, changes and stuff like that. It's going to be very hard to do, but we'll see. I mean, look, stranger thing that happened here in the NFL. We didn't think that people were going to touch the Steelers' record for most Super Bowl wins, but and the 49ers and such. But look, one guy has already done that, so just just crazy. Now, keeping up with the theme here, of course, is alma mater Michigan. Jim Harbaugh, with all the crazy stuff that's going on. At first, I thought it was the Raiders. Yeah, be nice, Flo. I know you're an Ohio State guy, so be nice. But just for 2 minutes, I promise. Of course, there were all those rumors that he was going to go to Vegas, and of course, the Miami rumors, and now Minnesota. They actually flew to Minnesota, met with them for 9 hours. Of course, I guess the rumors were that he thought he was going to get the job. Now he's, Mitch. If you saw the interview he did with Mitch Albom early this morning, he said, "Oh, I'm here as long as they need me. I will love being here, and this and that, and someone said on Twitter, and then that we brought this up earlier. Someone brought this up earlier on Twitter that a young lady, and I guess you got to look at the tweet, said that with the interview with Mitch Albom, he said, "Look, they were going to break up with you, Michigan. He was going to break up with you, or something like that." Paraphrasing, but look it up though. It's out there. I'm sure it's still up. This is early this morning. I'll start with you. What do you think about that whole situation?
Well, you know what? I know a lot of people in Chicago were up in arms about him possibly being the coach for the Vikings. And for me, I really didn't, blink too much about it. I think that this was a situation where Jim Harbaugh is using leverage to get more money, because there's always these things where, there's always a possibility that he can go to the NFL and get the contract that he wants. And so being able to have that and to show Michigan, his alma mater, saying to show them that, he can get more money, especially when you look at what they gave Mel Tucker in Michigan State, 95 million, so Jim is probably looking at this like, man, you know what? Hey, I need to, do something to increase my worth and my value to this university. And so I think this is one of those situations where that was happening. I'm hearing reports that, Jim Harbaugh went to the interview and didn't have a plan for the team, didn't know who he was going to hire on the staff. Mm-hmm. And so it just kind of took the people doing the interviews for the Vikings aback a little bit. And that's why they decided to go into a different direction. And also, let's be clear, with guys like, Jim Harbaugh, it's always been kind of hard to get a read on him and what he really wants to do. And this is a person who can decide and move on anytime he wants. So much like what happened with Nick Saban in Miami a few years back, right now, in Michigan, he has his own fiefdom or kingdom or whatever, where he runs the show, he runs the university, he is the man, he is it. All right. And the NFL is a little bit different. And so, and you have to, work and cooperate with people a little bit more in the NFL. And, that's not something that it seems like he's, been willing to do a lot. And it's interesting because, some of those same things that they were saying about Jim Harbaugh being hard to work with and everything, they were saying about Brian Flores. But yet, Jim Harbaugh is the hottest candidate out there. I'm just going back to the beginning, but that is what it is for me.
Flows.
Well, also remember, I'm biased. I do not like the team up north at all. But since I have seen Jim Harbaugh as a coach before he was with Michigan, I will say, the situation of them not hiring I'm going to say it just takes into the arrogance, or just goes to the arrogance that he is. He's a very, very arrogant as a coach. As a man, I don't know. I don't know him. But his arrogance as a coach makes it seem like you're supposed to hire me because of what I've done, not what I can do. And I heard those same things, that he didn't really have a plan. And these are 3 teams that moved on from him. A lot of people, especially like on the Bears beat, I respect that every Bears beat writer have a good relationship with them. But a lot of people are up in arms like, why wasn't Jim Harbaugh considered? He should automatically be considered. And realizing that he was with the Bears in one period of time. But my thought was, this is someone who did not like the NFL game because he did not have control over the entire team. When you're a college coach, that is your program. You
Mm-hmm.
controlled it top to bottom. This is who you're going to get, who you're going to get here. Whereas the NFL, no, you have to go through the GM. The GM has to consider its checks and balances. So for him not being hired, it would make more sense if he was doing it just to up his money with Michigan. Tank, like that's a really good angle I did not consider, because to come into the NFL game and these interviews and not have something solidly in place, like I would give Eberflus credit. His first thing is, I'm not calling the plays. I'm going to get somebody I trust defensively, and then he raided the Colts and got who he wanted. That's having a plan. Whereas Harbaugh just was probably going off his name and the 4 years that he had. Great years he had with the Niners. But the fact that teams moved on from him either will be the fact that they did not want to deal with his personality, which can be a bit brash, a bit abrasive, or the fact that he was trying to get more money out of Michigan. Me personally, I would love for him to stay in Michigan because I want us to get revenge for the game this year. That's the only thing that's on my mind right now. But when he was even being considered for the Vikings, my first thought is, well, a Buckeye's gonna end his streak again in Justin Fields. So it would make more sense if he was trying to get money out of, not get money, but make his value to Michigan even more. Even though I think, you just beat Ohio State. That in itself gives you basically a license. You're a hero, to Michigan campus. So it make more sense that he was trying to up his value.
Yeah, he was 2-2 as a player too back in the mid '80s. So yeah, I kind of feel like, I've always felt, and Tate knows this. I've always felt that this is always used as leverage, to get up his value a little bit, because of course you guys know that a couple of years back during the pandemic, the start of the pandemic at least, he had to take a pay cut, to keep everything else afloat with the Michigan Athletics. So he probably wasn't happy about that. I think he probably, he beat. Sorry, Flo, your Buckeyes this year. Finally, it was time. It was time. It's been 7 years, for goodness sakes. Finally, got over the hump. Yeah, right, exactly. Got over the hump. Got to the playoff. Of course, got their butts kicked by the eventual champion. So Michigan fans can feel a little bit better about that. Georgia ended up winning the championship, of course. So yeah, I've always felt that this was sort of like just a way to kind of up his value, like you guys said. Just to.
Real quick. I'm sorry, but I want this kick
No,
out.
go ahead. It's fine. Go ahead.
Didn't Lovie Smith at Illinois beat Ohio State before Jim Harbaugh did at Michigan?
I believe you're right.
I don't remember us losing Illinois. I remember we lost to Virginia Tech the year we won the national title.
Yes, you did.
And we almost lost to Penn State Northwestern. We had a few one-loss seasons, but Illinois, oh God, I hope we didn't. But I can't remember any.
Well, that was in 05. Well, that was in 05, of course. When Ohio State was number one. Juice Williams, and Mendenhall.
Rashad Mendenhall, Juice Williams. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the only Illinois team I liked.
Yeah. So that was. Yeah, it was against Wisconsin. Actually, Lovey's biggest win. I think because they were. I think at the time, Wisconsin was like in the top 10 or the top 7. I think so. Yeah, that was his biggest win. It just, Kyle just brought it up. So yeah, so that makes sense. Wrapping up here with our WARR Media NFL playoff special here on, we're right on the big game, kind of like a sort of a bridge between, this next week's big Super Bowl. It's going to be coming up. This is very exciting this weekend. The promotion actually is this weekend is the Pro Bowl. It'll be on ABC, ESPN. The Monday Night Guys will be doing it. Steve Levy, Brian Greasy, and Louis Riddick. We got 2 Bears in the Pro Bowl, of course. And Jakeem Grant and Robert Quinn. I'm probably not going to watch a single minute of the Pro Bowl. I know they did it. They did it last year. I think they just, I don't think they played. They're going to play this year. Are you guys going to watch? Honestly, I'm not.
The Pro Bowl?
Well, are you going to maybe take a peek at it or something? I'm not, but.
No,
I'm not watching the Pro Bowl.
I feel like maybe it seemed like the activities they're doing this week are much more fun for them than the actual game. Like, they're not going to tackle each other. They should just make it a 7-on-7. Make it a fun 7-on-7. Get some celebrities involved and make it something like we tune into, like with the home run derby. I tune into it just to see bombs being hit. And if you change the Pro Bowl to literally just 7-on-7, you don't have to worry about being hit. I'll probably watch it, but this half 50% football, no.
Tank.
No.
He's got nothing. He got nothing. The skills competition, you guys checked it out from last night. I think Russell Wilson, they need to bring back the quarterback challenge Remember that way back
Oh
when?
yeah.
Back in the early, like the late 80s, early 90s, NBC would
Now
show
that
it
would
a
be
lot.
interesting. Yeah, that would be interesting.
What
I
was
agree with
Rock and
that.
Jock? Wasn't that something too? That was celebrities were playing 7-on-7. I don't know if that was a part of
Yeah,
Pro Bowl,
yeah,
but
yeah. I think they did for baseball. I think softball, and also of course basketball too. That's probably what was probably the most relevant. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool too, especially with the All-Star game coming up. They should look a rock and jock type of thing. Maybe you're in Vegas, so you got the celebrities right there. So why not?
yeah.
All right, as we close things out here, Flows, you don't have to give us your Super Bowl pick just yet, but what are you expecting from this Super Bowl 56? So if I say between the Rams and the Bengals.
I'm expecting very small amounts of defense. I'm expecting probably upper 20s, upper 30s for each team. My pick is the Bengals. I would just immediately give that up. I have too much faith in the Buckeye, Joe Burrow. So, but I'm expecting a high scoring game. I don't think these defenses are going to stop one another.
Well, Joe, you don't have to show your pick because we're gonna do ours next week. But Tank, what are your kind of like early synopsis here?
I mean, this is a very interesting matchup. You got a young and upcoming team versus a veteran-laden team, a team who pushed all their chips in and gave up all their draft capital and gave up all their money to bring this collection of players together to win a Super Bowl. And, and they almost didn't get here. So, 2 weeks in a row. And then you got a team in the Cincinnati Bengals, who many think have overachieved. Not me. I actually bet on the Bengals to beat Kansas City. Just so everybody knows, I won that bet. But so, I wasn't fooled. By the what was the spread? 7.5 points that
7.5. Yep.
yeah, come
7.5.
on
Yep.
now. Have they watched this team play all year? So, but yeah, I'm excited about I'm excited to see what the Bengals can do, and I'm a very big Joe Burrow fan. I'm a cigar guy. Joe Burrow's a cigar guy, so I like that about him. In that team, that team has a lot of fight. They don't quit, and so I'm just interested to see how it's going to play out. I probably gave away my pick, but it'll be an interesting matchup.
To me, I think the Super Bowl can go one of two ways. Either, Evan McPherson, clinches it with another field goal, probably the biggest field goal of his career, probably of his life, or ends up being a blowout. There might be something in between, maybe, the Bengals, somehow win by 10, or maybe the Rams sort of pull away late. I think those are kind of like the four scenarios I'm kind of, thinking of. I'm not doing my pick just yet. You guys got to, tune in next week. But yeah, that's kind of where my mind is right now with the Super Bowl. I think it's gonna be very entertaining. Though. I think NBC got a good one. I know the Bengals were like 101 odds to get to the Super Bowl this year, so you made a nice little chunk of money there too if you bet on the Bengals to make the Super Bowl this year. But yeah, I think the Bengals are going to show that they're not going to be pushovers. They're going to show that they do deserve to be there. It's been what was that? What was that, Tank?
Oh, something just fell in my room.
Oh, okay. I picked up. I thought you said something. But yeah, it's been like about like 30 some, like almost, it'll be 30 some odd years since the Bears have won their only Super Bowl. You guys think we can get, what's your biggest, I know, you guys probably, I know, Flows, you weren't even born yet. So
No, I was not alive.
yeah. So yeah, just that, you were kind of used to, this and such. Me, I was barely like 4, and I kind of vaguely remember something big was happening. So, I kind of, saw, the Bears, Super Bowl shuffle, which, someone, just posted, like, it was like it was like number 1 in the charts for a couple of weeks. I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. It sure was. So, Tank, what is your kind of like, you're not the same age, so.
Yeah,
Well,
so
no.
I'm 40. So I was about 5 years old. Well, not even, yeah, I was closer to 4. Yeah, in 85. But yeah, I remember vividly the Super Bowl shuffle and watching that on TV. I remember growing up a Walter Payton fan. I remember growing up thinking that Jim McMahon was the best QB in the league. It wasn't until older that I realized that he was actually mid. But he had the whole persona, the shades and the headband, the punky QB with the
Punky
spiky
QB,
hair.
yeah.
You know, these guys had larger than life, personality. I remember the fridge being a
Yes.
part of GI Joe. They had
Yes.
these GI Joe cartoons, and the fridge was a guest appearance. They
Oh
made him
yeah,
a
I remember that.
character for GI Joe, and I had the action figure, and he had this weapon where he had a football and a chain that he would
I
hit people
remember
with.
that. I
He
remember
would swing
that.
around. The William Refrigerator Perry had an action figure of GI Joe with kung fu grip, and he had the chain attached to the football, and he would swing and hit the
Yep.
cobra
Cobra
with
kept.
it.
Yep. Yep.
So I remember all those things. About growing up and Dicka, and things like that, and to kind of tie it all back to to present day. A lot of people were critical of the Harbaugh not really being a shot to be a coach. Well, you go back to Dicka, and he was this larger than life personality, for the Bears. It was like the Bears were his, and I also think that's something that ownership doesn't want to go through again, honestly,
Right.
dealing with personalities like that. And so, but yeah, that they should have won more Super Bowls, obviously, with that collection of talent they had. And that 46 defense, growing up, I really couldn't, I wasn't a student of the game yet. So I just knew the Bears were good, and I liked the team. And then we talked about the Super Bowl, what, 15 years
So
ago
15
with
years ago, yeah. I want to
yeah,
talk.
with
Go
Devin.
more.
With
Let's go a little more in depth about that because I feel like of course, Devin has
yeah,
to be the kickoff. Who should be a Hall of Fame? Who might be in the Hall of Fame
he
next
should be
weekend?
a Hall
So
of Famer. He should
hopefully
be a
he'll
Hall
get
of
in.
Famer.
Hopefully he'll get in. Of course, now still the only time where you got a kickoff return for a touchdown in the rain in Miami. It was just like would the Bears have wanted though if they had done things differently? Because I feel like, of course, there are those folks that say, well, maybe Brian Greasy probably should have got in that quarterback once Rex was struggling. And they were actually in it too for most of the game. Of course, the Grossman interception. I think it was like about 8 or 9 minutes left that kind of sealed the win for the Colts. But Flows, what do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah. I kind of feel like, in that game, the Bears kind of went away from what got them there, which was special teams defense and controlling the clock with the ball. And this is definitely a game that Thomas Jones should have been featured, the whole second half and really punish that team. That was a team that you could have run on and got yards on. And to let that slip away, I think in the way that they did by not sticking to the strategy, sticking to the bread and butter that got you there. I think they, kind of, you know, got themselves into this, they overthought it. They kind of thought they had to put points up to kind of keep Peyton at bay. But the thing that was keeping them at the bay was controlling the clock and playing tough defense. That first possession for the Colts, I think it was Chris Harris who got an interception on that first offensive possession for the Bears. And so the Bears were really in control of that game and had them rattled. And I think if they could have just, gave him a heavy dose of Thomas Jones in the second half, it could have been a little bit different. Hindsight is 2020, of course, but I really think if Thomas Jones should have ended up being the MVP of that game, or Devin Hester.
What about you, Flows?
Yeah, that game was interesting because I remember when Cedric Benson got hurt, that kind of really just nerfed their entire game plan. Now, of course, during the season, Thomas Jones was 1,000-yard rusher. He was the guy. Cedric Benson may have had in between 400, 600 yards. I'm not 100% sure his season stats, but that was their bread and butter. And every now and then Rex would throw a big time throw. Of course, we remember him more for his interceptions. But that game should have absolutely been won by the Bears. You should not have 14-6 lead at half. It may have been 14-6 lead at half and lost that game. I think the final score was 27-14 or something around there. And then Peyton Manning in big games. I remember growing up, he gave the ball away. That's why I like Tom Brady. Tom Brady was my guy growing up because every time they played, every time it was a big game, it seemed like Tom would handle business and Peyton would throw it away somehow. And so when you got that Chris Harris interception, which at that point in time, I was like, oh, it's over. The Bears are winning this game. The defense
Mm-hmm.
is playing lights out. And then Cedric Benson gets hurt, and then they're in panic mode. Okay, I don't think we can run the ball anymore, which, of course, you can. This Indianapolis Colts defense was more based on takeaways rather than stopping the run game. So I absolutely think they could have been the champions if they had, done everything. I wouldn't even say perfectly, but just maybe 20% better they could have. But as you said, Tank, hindsight is 2020. But what I do think about the game overall is I'm tired of hearing about it. I'm tired of hearing about the
Right.
85. I'm tired of hearing about the 85 Bears. Them having to roll out the 85 Bears every year. They're getting older.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see this 20 years from now when they're in their 80s or 90s. I'm ready for Chicago to have a new group of talent. 10 years from
Right.
now, it'd be great if you could talk about the 2024 Bears who won a Super Bowl. And I think the 85 Bears and the 2005 Bears or 2006 Bears are tied to that as well. It's really time that the Bears put that behind. But until they have
Mm-hmm.
someone worthy, we're going to hear about this every single year.
Yeah,
Yep.
14-6 was the lead in the first quarter, and
First quarter.
they actually scored, I think, like 13 on the answer. The Colts did, and of course they had a field goal, and like you said, Benson got hurt, I think, right at the beginning of the second quarter. The final score ended up being 29-17, and they had their shots to kind of try to make the game interesting, but by late in the second half, they were I think you guys both said it. I mean, they kind of went away what got them there. They didn't run the ball. Thomas Jones should have been featured more and such. Now, there are those that say that maybe Greasy should have been in there. Maybe they would have been a little bit better, or maybe they would have had a shot. But like you said, I mean, hindsight is 2020, and hopefully, maybe the next few years, we'll have a new group of Bears, and people will start talking about both these Super Bowls. But we're wrapping things up here on WARR Media. You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan_McGee on the IG. You also listen and watch me on Second City Sports with my buddy Sydney Brown, Sid Kid 80. On Sports Zone Chicago. You can catch the audio version right here on WARR Media, wherever you get your podcasts and such. Flows, where everyone can find your stuff and follow you on social media.
You can follow me at 79th and Halas. That is my podcast page. You can also follow Barber's Chair Network. That is our company page at Barber's Chair Net. This is Twitter. And me personally, you can follow me at Flows Andolini on Twitter and Instagram.
Tank?
Yes, at badman_Tanksley on Twitter and IG. You can follow me there. And you can also check me out at WARR Media talking about football right here.
All right, so please stay warm out there, folks. I know it's a little bit cold and icy there, and everything. So just stay warm out there, folks. It was a little freezing. Of course, it's for early February, so what you expect. So for Tank and Flo, I'm the Kansas. It's been WARR Media's NFL playoff special, and we'll see you next week to talk about the big game. So stay safe, everybody.